Lily nervously adjusted her blazer as she stepped through the gleaming glass doors of Preston Financial Group. It was her third week at the prestigious company, and she still couldn't believe she had landed a job at one of the most elite investment firms in the city. The lobby alone screamed money. Marble floors that echoed with every step, abstract art that probably cost more than her yearly salary, and receptionists who looked like they belonged on magazine covers. "Good morning, Miss Chen." The security guard nodded as she flashed her still new employee badge. "Morning, Roy," she replied, trying to sound confident. She had made it a point to learn everyone's names, from the cleaning staff to the executives. Her grandmother had always told her that true character shows in how you treat people regardless of what they can do for you. The elevator ride to the 14th floor was a daily reminder of where she stood in the company hierarchy. Junior analysts like Lily got off on the lower floors, while the top executives and partners worked from the upper levels with corner offices and skyline views. As the doors opened, Lily stepped into the familiar buzz of the trading floor. Rows of desks lined with multiple screens displayed flashing numbers and charts. The atmosphere was already charged despite it being barely 8 a.m. "Hey, new girl, coffee run time," called out Trevor from the senior analysts section. He didn't bother looking up from his screens, just held out an empty mug in her general direction. Lily bit her lip. She wasn't hired to be anyone's personal barista, but she was also keenly aware of the unwritten rules. Junior staff were expected to pay their dues. She had worked too hard to get here to make enemies in her first month. "2 sugars, no cream," Trevor added, still not making eye contact. She was about to respond when a sharp voice cut through the noise of the trading floor. "Ms. Chen doesn't fetch coffee, Trevor. That's what the cafe downstairs is for." The voice belonged to Diane Blackwood, head of investment strategy and Lily's direct boss. Diane stood at the entrance to her glass-walled office, impeccably dressed in a tailored charcoal suit that probably cost more than Lily's monthly rent. Her dark hair was pulled back in a sleek bun, not a single strand out of place. At 45, Diane had the distinction of being the youngest female partner in the firm's history, a fact she never let anyone forget. Trevor immediately straightened up. "Just joking around, Ms. Blackwood, welcoming the newbie." "Save the hazing for your frat reunions," Diane replied coolly. "Lily, my office. Bring your portfolio analysis." Lily quickly grabbed her tablet and notebook, heart pounding as she followed Diane. Being singled out so early in the day couldn't be good. Had she made a mistake in yesterday's reports? She had stayed until almost 10 p.m. double-checking her numbers. Diane's office was minimalist and intimidating. A large glass desk, a single orchid in a ceramic pot, and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. The only personal touch was a black-and-white photo of Diane shaking hands with the governor at a charity gala. "Close the door," Diane instructed, as she settled into her ergonomic chair. She didn't invite Lily to sit. "Your analysis on the Henderson account," Diane began, tapping her manicured fingers on her tablet. It was thorough. Lily couldn't tell if that was a compliment or criticism. "Thank you. I tried to consider all the variables you mentioned. It's what you didn't mention that interests me." Diane turned her tablet around, showing a highlighted section of Lily's report. "You suggested ethical concerns about their manufacturing practices might impact long-term stock performance." Lily swallowed hard. She had included that note after researching the company's history of environmental violations. It seemed relevant to future risk assessment, but maybe she had overstepped. "I just thought," she started. "You're not paid to editorialize. Ms. Chen, you're paid to analyze potential return on investment." Diane's voice remained perfectly level, which somehow made it more intimidating than if she had shouted. "I apologize if I overstepped," Lily said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I believed those factors could affect investor confidence if they became public knowledge." Something flickered across Diane's face. Surprise, perhaps. She hadn't expected Lily to defend her position. "Sit," Diane finally said, gesturing to one of the 2 chairs facing her desk. Lily sat, her posture straight as a board, hands folded in her lap to hide their slight trembling. "I looked into your background," Diane said, setting down her tablet. "State University, not Ivy League. Scholarship student, first in your family to graduate college. No connections in finance." She listed these facts like she was reading off deficiencies, yet you scored higher on the analyst exam than candidates from Harvard and Yale. Diane leaned forward slightly, How? The question caught Lily off guard. I studied. A lot. Everyone studies, Ms. Chen. Not everyone scores in the top percentile. Lily hesitated, then decided honesty was her only option. I couldn't afford to fail. I didn't have a safety net or family connections to fall back on. This job wasn't just one option among many for me. It was the only option. Diane's expression remained unreadable, but she nodded slowly. I see. She picked up her tablet again, swiping through screens. Your employee profile. You completed it last week? Yes, ma'am. It says here under hobbies, piano, hiking, and community garden volunteer? Diane raised an eyebrow. Interesting choices. Lily wasn't sure why her hobbies were suddenly under scrutiny. Those are things I enjoy outside of work. Piano, Diane repeated, fixating on that single word. Professional training? No, not professional. My grandmother taught me when I was young. I played throughout school. How convenient, Diane said, a small smile forming. The company's annual gala is next month. The theme is Excellence Beyond Boundaries. The CEO wants to showcase employee talents outside the financial world. Lily nodded, still not understanding where this was going. I've just volunteered you to perform, Diane announced, already typing something on her tablet. The partners love this kind of thing. The well-rounded employee who brings culture to our ranks. Perform? You mean play the piano? At the gala? Lily's voice rose slightly in panic. But I haven't played formally in years. Then I suggest you start practicing, Diane replied smoothly. This gala is attended by everyone who matters in this company, plus major clients and board members. The implication was clear. This wasn't really a request. May I ask why me? Lily ventured. Surely there are others with more impressive talents. Diane set down her tablet and fixed Lily with a penetrating stare. Let me be direct, Ms. Chen. You're intelligent and hardworking, qualities I respect. But this is Preston Financial. Excellence isn't enough here. You need to stand out, make connections, impress the right people. She gestured toward the trading floor, visible through the glass walls. Half those analysts out there will be gone within 2 years, replaced by the next batch of eager graduates. The ones who stay are those who become memorable. Lily understood the subtext. This was both a test and an opportunity, though she strongly suspected Diane expected her to fail. The partners would witness her mediocrity firsthand, confirming that she didn't belong in their exclusive world despite her test scores. The gala is on the 17th, Diane continued, turning back to her computer, effectively dismissing Lily. The cultural committee will contact you about your music selection. Something appropriate for the setting, I trust. Lily rose from her chair, mind racing. Yes, Ms. Blackwood, thank you for the opportunity. As she reached the door, Diane spoke again. Oh, and Lily? The Henderson account. Your ethical concerns were noted by the risk assessment team this morning. It seems there's a pending investigation that hasn't hit the news yet. She didn't look up from her screen. Sometimes thinking differently has value. Don't make me regret giving you this chance to shine. Lily walked back to her desk in a daze. The message had been mixed. Criticism wrapped in opportunity, wrapped in what might have been a compliment. She sank into her chair, the reality of her situation sinking in. 1 month to prepare a piano piece impressive enough to perform in front of the entire company leadership, after barely touching a piano in the past 5 years. While working 60-hour weeks as a junior analyst, her phone buzzed with an email notification. It was from the PFG Cultural Committee with the subject line, Gala Performance Confirmation. They were already announcing her as one of the evening's highlights. Lily looked around the trading floor at her colleagues, all from better schools, better families with better connections. They had weekend homes and country club memberships. They belonged here. She opened her desk drawer and pulled out the small jade elephant her grandmother had given her for luck. Success isn't about fitting in, her grandmother used to say. It's about standing out for the right reasons. Diane hadn't chosen her for this performance to help her career. That much was obvious. This was a public test she was expected to fail, but Lily had been underestimated her entire life. She closed her hand around the jade elephant and made a decision. If she was going to be pushed onto a stage, she wouldn't just play. She would leave them speechless. Now she just needed to find a piano to practice on, and somehow find the time, and choose the perfect piece, and not completely humiliate herself in front of everyone who controlled her future. Simple, right? 3 weeks before the gala, Lily sat at her desk staring at her computer screen without really seeing it. The deadline for submitting her music selection to the cultural committee had arrived, and she still hadn't decided what to play. How could she when she hadn't even touched a piano yet? Her apartment didn't have space for even a small keyboard, and she certainly couldn't afford to buy one on her starting salary. Between rent, student loans, and helping her mom with bills back home, Lily's budget was stretched thin as it was. Earth to Lily. A voice broke through her thoughts. It was Nina from the desk across from hers, another junior analyst who had started 2 months before Lily. "You've been staring at that same spreadsheet for 15 minutes. Sorry. Lily shook her head. Just thinking. About your big performance? Nina raised an eyebrow. Everyone's talking about it, you know. Diane hasn't put forward anyone for the gala showcase in years. Lily's stomach tightened. Everyone's talking about it? Well, yeah. Nina lowered her voice. Look, I don't want to stress you out, but you should know that Diane has a reputation. She doesn't do favors without a reason. It's not a favor, Lily sighed. It's a test I'm pretty sure she expects me to fail. Nina nodded sympathetically. Last year she volunteered this guy Thomas for a leadership presentation. He bombed so badly he transferred to the Dallas office the next month. She paused. So, are you actually any good? I used to be, Lily said. But I haven't really played since college, and even then it was just for fun. Her computer pinged with an email notification. It was from Diane's assistant requesting Lily's presence in the executive conference room at 3 p.m. No explanation given. That can't be good, Nina muttered, looking over Lily's shoulder. Thanks for the vote of confidence, Lily replied dryly. The hours ticked by slowly. At precisely 2:58 p.m., Lily took the elevator to the top floor, her portfolio tucked under her arm just in case this was about work and not the gala. The executive conference room had a view that momentarily made Lily forget her anxiety. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased the entire city skyline, the river winding through it like a silver ribbon. The room itself featured a massive oval table that could seat 20 people, though currently only 3 were present. Diane, an older man Lily recognized as Harold Preston himself, the CEO and founder of the company, and a woman in her 60s with silver-streaked hair whom Lily didn't know. Ah, there she is, Harold Preston said warmly as Lily entered. He was in his 70s with a full head of white hair and the kind of tan that spoke of weekends spent on golf courses. Our pianist! Ms. Chen, thank you for joining us, Diane said smoothly. You know Mr. Preston, of course. And this is Victoria Lockhart, our head of client relations and chair of the gala committee. Pleased to meet you, Lily said, trying to keep her voice steady as she shook hands with both of them. Victoria's grip was surprisingly strong for someone her age. Diane tells me you're quite the talent, Harold said. Piano was my late wife's passion, you know. She studied at Juilliard before she decided to join me in building this company. I wouldn't call myself a talent, sir, Lily admitted. I enjoyed playing growing up, but I'm far from professional level. Modesty. Harold chuckled. Refreshing in this building, isn't it, Diane? Diane's smile didn't reach her eyes. Indeed. Well, we're all looking forward to your performance, Victoria said, consulting her tablet. Have you submitted your piece selection yet? The program is being finalized tomorrow. I was actually hoping to discuss that, Lily said, seizing the opening. I haven't had access to a piano to practice, so I'm not sure. Oh, that won't be a problem, Harold interrupted cheerfully. We have a Steinway in the reception hall downstairs. Been there since Martha insisted we needed culture in the building. His voice softened when he mentioned his wife. You're welcome to use it after hours. That's very generous, sir, Lily said, genuinely surprised by the offer. What will you be playing for us? Victoria asked again, stylus poised over her tablet. Lily hesitated. She needed to choose something impressive enough to meet expectations, but not so difficult that she'd embarrass herself. She thought back to her repertoire from years ago, trying to remember what had once come easily to her fingers. Bach's Prelude in C major, she finally said. It was beautiful, but relatively straightforward, something she might reasonably master in 3 weeks. Victoria nodded approvingly. A classic choice. It will pair nicely with the string quartet we've hired for the cocktail hour. Lovely, Harold said, standing up. Well, that's settled then. Looking forward to it, Ms. Chen. Martha would have appreciated having another pianist in the company. After he left, Victoria gathered her things and followed, leaving Lily alone with Diane. Bach, Diane said after a moment of silence. Safe choice. Lily wasn't sure if that was criticism or approval. I thought it would suit the occasion. The gala isn't just a company party, Ms. Chen. It's where our biggest clients and potential investors form their impressions of our firm, Diane said, walking to the window. Safe won't make an impression. What would you suggest? Lily asked, trying not to sound defensive. Diane turned to face her. Something that shows what you're capable of. Something that makes people remember your name the next day. She picked up her leather portfolio. The building is open until 10 p.m. Security knows you'll be using the piano. Don't waste the opportunity. With that, she left Lily standing alone in the vast conference room, feeling smaller than ever. That evening, after most employees had gone home, Lily took the elevator to the main reception hall. It was eerily quiet without the usual bustle of people. Her footsteps echoed across the marble floor as she approached the grand piano positioned near the fountain. It was beautiful, gleaming black with brass details that caught the dim evening light. Lily ran her fingers lightly over the keys without pressing down, just feeling their smooth coolness beneath her fingertips. You must be Ms. Chen, a voice said, startling her. An older security guard stood a few feet away, keys jangling at his belt. His name badge read Frank. Yes, sorry, she said quickly. Mr. Preston said I could practice here. No need to apologize, Frank smiled. Mr. P already told me. It'll be nice to have some music around here again. Place gets too quiet after hours. You don't mind? Lily asked, relieved. Mind? I've been listening to nothing but my own footsteps for 12 years on night shift. Frank chuckled. Just promise you'll play something cheerful at least once a night. Lily smiled, her first genuine smile of the day. I promise. After Frank returned to his desk by the entrance, Lily sat down at the piano bench and took a deep breath. She placed her fingers on the keys, closed her eyes, and began to play Bach's Prelude in C major, or tried to. Her fingers felt stiff and unfamiliar, hitting wrong notes and losing the rhythm. She stopped after a particularly jarring mistake, frustration building. She tried again, and again the music came out halting and awkward, not at all like the flowing, meditative piece it was supposed to be. An hour passed with little improvement. Her shoulders ached from tension, and doubt crept in with each mistake. Maybe Diane was right to expect failure. Maybe this was a test she simply couldn't pass. Frank appeared with a cup of tea, setting it on a table near the piano. Taking a break? More like giving up, Lily admitted, rubbing her wrists. Sounded like you were fighting with it, Frank observed. Piano's like a person, gotta get reacquainted after time apart. Did you play? She asked, surprised. Me? No, but Mr. P's wife, she played every day when she was alive. Used to come down and practice during lunch. Said it cleared her head for the afternoon meetings. He nodded toward the piano. That was her instrument. Mr. P had it moved here after she passed. Said the music room at home was too quiet without her. Lily looked at the piano with new appreciation, understanding now why Harold had seemed so pleased about her performance. Mrs. P never played Bach, though, Frank continued. Said it was too mathematical for her taste. She liked the emotional composers, Chopin, Debussy. Music that tells a story, she called it. Something clicked in Lily's mind. Bach wasn't working because she was approaching it like a technical exercise, trying to play the right notes in the right order. But music wasn't just about correctness. It was about feeling. Frank, do you think Mr. Preston would mind if I change my piece? Frank shrugged. It's your performance. Mrs. P changed her mind all the time, said the piano told her what it wanted to play each day. Lily laughed. I'm not sure I'm at the piano whisperer level yet. You'll get there, Frank said with unexpected conviction. Just need to find your song first. He left her to her practice, and Lily turned back to the keys with renewed determination. Instead of Bach, she let her fingers find their own path, playing fragments of pieces she remembered from years ago. When her fingers drifted into the opening notes of Debussy's Clair de Lune, something felt right. It was challenging, certainly, maybe too ambitious for just 3 weeks of practice, but the music spoke to her in a way Bach hadn't. As the gentle, dreamlike melody filled the empty hall, Lily felt a shift. This wasn't just about proving herself to Diane or impressing Harold Preston. This was about reconnecting with something she had loved and left behind. For the first time since Diane had volunteered her for this performance, Lily felt a glimmer of excitement beneath the fear. Maybe, just maybe, this test wasn't a trap, but a gift in disguise. She played until her fingers ached and security called out that the building was closing. As she gathered her things to leave, she caught Frank listening from his desk, eyes closed. "Same time tomorrow?" he asked, opening his eyes. Lily nodded. "Same time tomorrow." For the next week, Lily settled into a new routine. Days were spent analyzing investment portfolios and attending meetings, while evenings transformed into piano sessions that stretched until the building closed. Her fingers slowly remembered their old paths across the keys, though not without struggle. Claire de Lune was proving more challenging than she'd anticipated. On Friday evening, after a particularly frustrating practice where she kept stumbling over the same passage, Lily rested her forehead against the piano's cool surface. "Sounds like you're making progress," Frank said, appearing with his nightly cup of tea for her. Lily looked up with a wry smile. "If you call repeating the same mistake 20 times progress." "That's exactly what progress is," Frank replied, setting down the tea. "Yesterday it was 30 times. She laughed despite her frustration. "I should have picked something easier." "Maybe, but easy doesn't stick with people." Frank leaned against the piano. "You know, Mrs. Preston used to get stuck too. She'd play the same section over and over until I thought I'd lose my mind. Then one day she'd just break through, like something clicked." "I'm running out of days for things to click," Lily sighed, checking her watch. It was already 9:30 p.m. 2 weeks left before the gala. "You'll get there," Frank said with his usual certainty. "But maybe not tonight." "You look exhausted." He wasn't wrong. Between full workdays and practice sessions that often ran until the building closed, Lily was running on empty. She hadn't had a proper meal in days, surviving mostly on vending machine snacks and the tea Frank brought her. "I'll just run through it one more time," she said, straightening her posture at the bench. As she began to play, the elevator doors opened and Diane Blackwood stepped out. Still in her work attire despite the late hour, Lily's fingers faltered on the keys. Frank nodded respectfully to Diane and discreetly retreated to his security desk. Diane walked toward the piano, her heels clicking sharply against the marble floor. She stood silently for a moment, her expression unreadable. "Don't stop on my account," she finally said. Lily swallowed and resumed playing, acutely aware of every mistake under Diane's critical gaze. When she finished, the final notes hanging in the air between them, she waited for the verdict. "Debussy," Diane observed. "Not Bach. I changed my selection," Lily admitted. "Victoria said it would be fine as long as I informed the committee by next week." "Interesting choice. More ambitious." Diane walked around the piano, trailing her fingers lightly across its polished surface. "You're making this harder on yourself." "It felt right," Lily said simply. "Feeling rarely factors into success in this business," Diane replied. She gestured to the bench. "Continue," it wasn't a request. Lily turned back to the keys and began again, trying to ignore the pressure of Diane's presence. She made it through the opening measures before stumbling on a difficult transition. "Your posture is too rigid," Diane said abruptly. "You're playing from your fingers, not your arms." Lily glanced up in surprise. "You play?" A fleeting expression crossed Diane's face, something almost like vulnerability before her professional mask returned. 12 years of lessons. "My mother's insistence." She adjusted her designer watch. "The piece requires fluidity. You're approaching it like a technical exercise." It was the same realization Lily had come to earlier, but hearing it from Diane was unexpected. "Show me the passage that's giving you trouble," Diane said. Checking her watch, Lily demonstrated the difficult transition, her fingers tangling as they had all evening. "Your hand position is wrong," Diane said matter-of-factly. She set down her portfolio and, to Lily's shock, sat beside her on the bench. "Like this." Diane's hands moved over the keys, demonstrating the correct position and flow. Her playing was technically perfect if somewhat mechanical. "Now you try," she instructed, standing up as quickly as she had sat down. Lily attempted the passage again, adjusting her approach based on Diane's demonstration. It wasn't perfect, but it flowed better than before. "Again," Diane said. They continued like this for 20 minutes, Lily playing, Diane critiquing, occasional demonstrations. It was the longest Lily had ever interacted with her boss outside of work matters, and certainly the most helpful Diane had ever been. "You need to practice the left hand separately," Diane finally said, glancing at her watch again. "And get proper sleep. Fatigue affects precision." She picked up her portfolio and turned to leave as abruptly as she had arrived. At the elevator, she paused. "Why Debussy?" she asked without turning around. Lily considered the question. Because it tells a story. It starts quietly, almost hesitantly, then builds to something beautiful and confident before returning to that quietness. But changed somehow. Like it's found its voice. Diane was silent for a moment. "Practice your left hand," she repeated, then stepped into the elevator and was gone. Frank reappeared from his station. "Well, that was unexpected." "You're telling me," Lily said, still processing what had happened. "Never seen her stop to listen to the piano before," Frank mused. "Mrs. Preston used to say music reveals things about people they try to hide." Lily thought about Diane's perfect technique in the brief moment when something real had slipped through her. Professional facade. Maybe there was more to her demanding boss than she had assumed. The next morning, Lily arrived at work to find a small package on her desk. Inside was a USB drive and a note in Diane's precise handwriting. For reference. Left hand highlighted. When Lily plugged it into her computer, she found professionally recorded versions of Clair de Lune, along with a practice tool that isolated the left-hand part. Exactly what she needed. Nina leaned over from her desk. "Secret admirer?" "Hardly," Lily said, but she couldn't help smiling. "Just some homework from the boss." Over the next few days, Lily's practice sessions became more productive. She focused on the techniques Diane had demonstrated, working on small sections until they flowed naturally before connecting them. The piece was beginning to take shape, though she still struggled with maintaining the delicate balance between technical precision and emotional expression. On Wednesday evening, a different security guard greeted her at the piano. "Frank called in sick," the guard explained. "Said to tell you he'll be back tomorrow." But Frank wasn't back the next day or the day after that. When Lily asked about him, the replacement guard just shrugged. "All I know is he's out on medical leave." Without Frank's encouragement and tea breaks, the practice sessions felt lonelier. Lily realized how much she had come to depend on his quiet support and gentle wisdom. The weekend arrived, and Lily found herself at loose ends without access to the office piano. Her apartment felt cramped and empty at the same time. On Sunday afternoon, desperate to continue practicing, she searched online for public pianos in the city. The community center 10 blocks from her apartment listed an upright piano in their recreation room. It wasn't ideal, but it was better than nothing. Lily grabbed her music and headed out. The community center was housed in an old brick building that had seen better days. Inside, elderly men played chess in one corner while a group of teenagers huddled around a table playing cards in another. A harried-looking woman at the front desk directed Lily to the music room. "It hasn't been tuned in ages," the woman warned, "but you're welcome to use it if you don't mind." The room was small but had decent acoustics. The piano was indeed old, with several chipped keys and a slightly tinny sound, but it was a piano nonetheless. Lily settled onto the bench and began her warm-up exercises. She had been playing for about 20 minutes when she became aware of someone listening from the doorway. She turned to find an elderly man with a slight frame and silver hair watching her with interest. "Please, don't stop," he said with a gentle accent. Chinese, similar to her grandmother's. "It's been too long since someone played music here." "I'm just practicing," Lily explained. "For a work event." "Debussy?" The man nodded appreciatively. "Beautiful piece. But you're fighting with it," Lily sighed. "So I've been told." The man stepped into the room, moving with the careful gait of someone managing chronic pain. "May I?" He gestured to the space beside her. Lily moved over on the bench, reminded of Diane's unexpected lesson days earlier. "I'm Joseph Lin," he introduced himself. "I taught music at the university for 40 years before retiring." "Lily Chen," she replied. "I work in finance now, but I used to play, just not professionally." "Music doesn't care if you're professional," Joseph said with a smile. "Only if you're honest." His hands, gnarled with arthritis, moved over the keys with surprising grace. Even on the out-of-tune piano, the opening notes of Clair de Lune sounded magical under his touch. "You see?" he said after playing the first few measures. "The notes are just the beginning. The spaces between them, that's where the music lives." "That's exactly what I'm struggling with," Lily admitted. "I can play the notes, but it doesn't sound alive." Joseph nodded, understanding. "Technical skill is like the bones of the piece. Important, yes, but without heart, it's just a skeleton." He tapped his chest. You must play from here, not just from the fingers. For the next hour, Joseph guided Lily through the piece with a gentleness that reminded her of her grandmother. Unlike Diane's precise technical corrections, Joseph focused on the feeling behind the music. Think of moonlight on water, he suggested. Always moving, never still, but peaceful. That's what Debussy was painting with sound. When Lily finally played through the troublesome middle section without stumbling, Joseph clapped his weathered hands in delight. There, you felt it that time, yes? She nodded, surprised at how different the piece sounded when she stopped overthinking it. When is your performance? Joseph asked. 10 days from now, Lily said, the familiar anxiety returning. Would you like some help until then? He offered. I'm here most afternoons. The arthritis doesn't let me play for long, but I can still teach. Lily felt a wave of gratitude. Between Diane's technical guidance, Joseph's artistic wisdom, and her own growing determination, maybe this impossible task wasn't so impossible after all. I would be honored, she said, meaning it completely. The night of the gala arrived faster than Lily could have imagined. The past week had been a blur of final preparations, early mornings at the office, evenings split between the company piano and Joseph's lessons at the community center, and late nights reviewing financial reports she couldn't neglect despite the looming performance. She stood in front of her bathroom mirror, barely recognizing herself. The dress she'd splurged on, the only real indulgence she'd allowed herself since starting at Preston Financial, was a simple but elegant dark blue gown that reminded her of night skies. Her grandmother's jade pendant hung at her throat, its familiar weight comforting against her skin. You can do this, she told her reflection, trying to ignore the flutter of nerves in her stomach. Just like you practiced with Joseph. Her phone buzzed with a text from Nina. Car's here. Don't worry, you'll be amazing. Nina had been surprisingly supportive once she realized Lily was serious about the performance. She'd even helped Lily choose the dress, insisting that, if you're going to shock the partners with your hidden talents, you should look fabulous doing it. The company had arranged cars for all employees attending the gala, which was being held at the Grand Plaza Hotel downtown. Lily took a deep breath and headed downstairs. The hotel's ballroom was transformed for the evening. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over elegantly decorated tables, while ice sculptures shaped like the company logo glistened near the entrance. A small stage had been set up at one end of the room where the Steinway grand piano waited like a silent challenge. Wow, they really go all out, don't they? Nina whispered as they entered, adjusting the strap of her red dress. Look, there's Diane with the board members. Lily followed Nina's gaze to where Diane stood conversing with a group of older men in tuxedos. Her boss wore a sleek black dress that screamed expensive taste, her hair styled in an elegant updo that emphasized her sharp features. As if sensing Lily's gaze, Diane looked up, gave a slight nod of acknowledgement, then returned to her conversation. Ms. Chen, Harold Preston's voice boomed behind them. The CEO approached with a champagne flute in hand, his tuxedo slightly rumpled but his smile warm. Our pianist of the evening. Nervous? A little, Lily admitted, shaking his outstretched hand. Good. Keeps the blood flowing, he said with a wink. Martha always said a touch of nerves improved her performances. Speaking of which, he gestured to an elderly man who had been standing slightly behind him. This is Martha's brother, Thomas. He flew in from Boston for the event when I told him we had a pianist in the company again. Thomas was tall and thin with the same kind eyes as his brother-in-law. Harold tells me you're playing Debussy, he said, shaking Lily's hand. My sister loved his compositions. I hope I can do it justice, Lily said, feeling the pressure mounting. I'm sure you will, my dear, Thomas replied. Harold says you've been practicing every evening in the same spot Martha used to play. Before Lily could respond, Victoria Lockhart appeared, clipboard in hand and efficiency in every movement. Mr. Preston, the dinner service is about to begin, she announced. Ms. Chen, you'll be performing after the main course and before Mr. Preston's address. She checked her watch. Approximately 40 minutes from now. The technician has prepared the piano, but feel free to check it before your performance. Victoria steered Harold and Thomas toward the head table, leaving Lily and Nina to find their assigned seats among the junior staff tables near the back of the room. Breathe, Nina reminded her as they sat down. You look like you're about to pass out. What if I mess up? Lily whispered, The reality of performing in front of the entire company, plus clients and board members, finally hitting her. What if I freeze? Then you'll join the ranks of every other human who's ever had stage fright, Nina said practically. But you won't. You've been killing yourself practicing for weeks. The dinner passed in a blur. Lily barely tasted the expensive salmon or heard the polite conversation around her. Her focus kept drifting to the piano waiting on the stage, gleaming under the spotlights. She nearly jumped when Victoria appeared at her shoulder halfway through dessert. 5 minutes, Miss Chen, she said quietly. Would you like to test the piano before we announce you? Lily nodded and followed Victoria to the stage, grateful for the chance to gather herself away from watching eyes. The piano was larger than the one she'd been practicing on, its keys smooth and perfect under her tentative touch. She played a few quiet notes, feeling the action of the keys, adjusting to the different weight and response. It's a beautiful instrument, she murmured. It should be, for what it cost to rent. Victoria replied with the hint of a smile. Much better than that old thing in the reception hall. Lily looked up in surprise. But that piano belonged to Mrs. Preston. Victoria's expression softened slightly. Yes, and it holds sentimental value. But between us, it needs a proper tuning. Harold refuses to let anyone touch it since she passed. She glanced at her clipboard. Are you ready? I'll introduce you after the applause for the string quartet. The string quartet was finishing their final piece, a lively Mozart selection that had the audience smiling and tapping their feet. Lily watched from the side of the stage, her heart pounding so hard she was sure everyone could hear it over the music. The quartet finished to enthusiastic applause. As they took their bows and exited, Victoria stepped up to the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, Preston Financial Group is proud to showcase talent from within our own ranks this evening. Please welcome Lily Chen from our investment analysis team, performing Claude Debussy's Clair de Lune. The polite applause that followed seemed to come from miles away as Lily walked to the piano. The spotlight was blinding, turning the audience into shadows beyond its glare. She caught glimpses of faces, Harold Preston leaning forward with interest, Thomas beside him with an encouraging smile, Nina giving her a thumbs up from the back table, and Diane, watching with that unreadable expression from her table near the front. Lily sat down at the bench, adjusted her dress, and placed her hands on the keys. The room fell silent, waiting. For a terrible moment, her mind went blank. The notes she'd practiced hundreds of times seemed to evaporate under the pressure of all those watching eyes. Her fingers hovered over the keys, frozen. Then she remembered Joseph's words from their last lesson the day before. Close your eyes. Find the music inside you first. The piano will wait. She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and let the world narrow down to just herself and the piano. She thought of moonlight on water, of her grandmother teaching her to play, of Joseph's gentle guidance, and even Diane's unexpected help. Her fingers found the first delicate notes, and Clair de Lune began to flow into the silent room. The piece started softly, almost hesitantly, like the first drops of rain before a gentle shower. Lily kept her eyes closed at first, letting muscle memory and feeling guide her through the familiar opening. As the music began to build, she opened her eyes but didn't look at the audience. She looked at her hands, watching them move across the keys as if they belonged to someone else. The middle section arrived, the part that had given her so much trouble during practice. Lily felt a moment of panic, but then Joseph's voice seemed to whisper in her ear, "Let the music breathe." She relaxed her shoulders, letting her body sway slightly with the crescendo as the piece built toward its emotional peak. The ballroom disappeared. The watching eyes faded away. There was only the music, rising and falling like waves, telling its story through her fingers. For the first time since she'd begun practicing, Lily wasn't thinking about the notes or the fingering or what people would think. She was simply playing, letting the music speak through her. As the final section approached, Lily dared to look up from the keys. The first face she saw was Harold Preston's, his eyes closed, a slight smile on his face as if the music had transported him somewhere else, perhaps to memories of his wife playing the same piece. Beside him, Thomas dabbed at his eyes with a handkerchief. Lily's gaze moved across the room and found Diane. To her astonishment, her usually stern boss was watching her with an expression of genuine surprise and what looked almost like pride. The final notes of the piece lingered in the air, soft and contemplative before fading into silence. For a moment no one moved or spoke. Lily's hands remained poised over the keys, her heart pounding in the silence. Then Harold Preston stood up, applauding with genuine enthusiasm. The rest of the room followed suit, the applause building until it filled the ballroom. Lily stood shakily and gave a small bow, overwhelmed by the response. As she made her way back to her table, people she barely knew from other departments reached out to touch her arm or shoulder in congratulation. Nina enveloped her in a hug as soon as she reached their table. "That was incredible," Nina whispered. "I had no idea you could play like that." "Neither did I," Lily admitted, still dazed from the experience. Before she could sit down, Victoria appeared at her side. "Mr. Preston would like you to join the head table for his address," she said, her usual efficiency softened by what might have been respect. Lily followed Victoria to the front of the room, where Harold stood waiting beside an empty chair next to his. "Magnificent. My dear," he said as she approached, taking both her hands in his. "Truly magnificent. Martha would have loved it." His eyes were bright with emotion. "Please sit with us for the remainder of the evening." As Lily took the offered seat, she found herself directly across from Diane. Their eyes met, and for once Diane didn't look away or maintain her professional mask. Instead, she gave Lily a small but genuine smile and raised her champagne glass in a subtle toast. The test Lily had been so certain she was meant to fail had somehow transformed into something else entirely, a chance to be seen for who she truly was, beyond spreadsheets and analysis reports. As Harold Preston rose to deliver his address, Lily realized that something fundamental had shifted in her place at the company. She was no longer just the new analyst from a state school without connections. Now she was Lily Chen, who had moved a room to silence and then applause with nothing but her hands and heart. The Monday after the gala, Lily arrived at work to find a small crowd gathered around her desk. Conversations hushed as she approached, replaced by smiles and nods of recognition. Her usual coffee cup sat waiting, but this time accompanied by a small vase of flowers with a note that simply read, "Bravo." The trading floor team. "There she is," said Trevor, the same senior analyst who had demanded coffee from her weeks ago. "Preston's pianist." His tone held none of the condescension she'd grown accustomed to. Instead, there was something that sounded remarkably like respect. "It was just one piece," Lily said, setting down her bag. "Just one piece that had the CEO misty-eyed," Nina chimed in, appearing at her side. "You're the talk of the company. Check your email." Lily logged into her computer to find her inbox flooded. Most were congratulatory messages from colleagues, many she'd never even spoken to before. But 3 stood out from the rest. The first was from Victoria Lockhart, brief and to the point. "Excellent performance. The Cultural Committee would be interested in discussing future events with you at your convenience." The second was from Harold Preston himself. "My dear Ms. Chen, your performance brought back the most wonderful memories of Martha. If you wouldn't mind, I'd like to speak with you this week about a special project. Please see my assistant to arrange a time. Warmly, Harold Preston." The third email had no subject line and came from Diane. "My office, 10 a.m. No pleasantries, no mention of the performance. Just Diane's typical directness." "What does Diane want?" Nina asked, reading over Lily's shoulder. "I guess I'll find out at 10, Lily replied, unable to keep a note of worry from her voice despite the previous night's success. "After that performance? It has to be good news," Nina reassured her. "Maybe you're getting promoted." Lily doubted that. One piano piece, however well received, didn't erase her junior status or limited experience. Still, she couldn't deny that something had shifted. People who had previously looked through her now saw her. The invisible wall between the elite inner circle and everyone else seemed just a little less impenetrable. At precisely 10 a.m., Lily knocked on Diane's office door. "Come in," Diane called. Lily entered to find her boss standing by the window, looking out at the city below. Unlike her usually immaculate desk, today papers were spread across the surface in uncharacteristic disarray. "Close the door," Diane said without turning around. Lily did as instructed and waited, unsure whether to sit or stand. After a long moment, Diane turned to face her. "Your performance exceeded expectations." Coming from Diane, this was high praise indeed. "Thank you," Lily said simply. "Harold hasn't stopped talking about it." Diane moved to her desk and picked up a folder. He's quite taken with the idea of expanding the company's cultural initiatives, specifically a music education program for underprivileged children. This wasn't at all what Lily had expected. That sounds wonderful. He wants you involved, Diane continued, handing Lily the folder. This is the preliminary proposal. The foundation would partner with local schools to provide instruments and instruction. Harold thinks it would be, what did he call it? A fitting tribute to Martha's passion for music education. Lily opened the folder to find detailed plans for what looked like a substantial charitable initiative. This is amazing, but I'm not sure how I fit in. I'm not a professional musician or a teacher. No, but you've demonstrated an ability to connect with people through music, Diane said matter-of-factly. Harold believes your background, coming from limited means to achieve success, makes you an ideal spokesperson for the program. Lily was stunned. Spokesperson? But my job is in investment analysis. Which brings me to the second matter. Diane sat down and gestured for Lily to do the same. Your analysis work has been consistently strong. The Henderson account risk assessment was particularly insightful. Thank you, Lily said, still trying to process the conversation's unexpected direction. I'm recommending you for the leadership development program, Diane continued. It's typically reserved for analysts with at least 2 years of experience, but exceptions can be made in exceptional cases. Lily struggled to maintain her composure. The leadership program was a fast track to advancement, offering mentorship from senior partners and high-profile project assignments. Why? She finally asked, the question escaping before she could stop it. Diane raised an eyebrow. Why what? Why recommend me? Why now? Lily clarified. Is it because of the piano? Because Mr. Preston was impressed? Something flickered across Diane's face, a momentary break in her professional mask. She leaned back in her chair, studying Lily with new consideration. Partly, she admitted. Connections matter in this business. Harold's interest in your career certainly doesn't hurt. She paused. But no, that's not the only reason. Diane stood and walked back to the window. When I volunteered you for the gala, I expected you to either decline or perform adequately. I didn't expect you to embrace the challenge the way you did. She turned to face Lily again. You could have chosen an easy piece. You could have practiced the minimum amount. You could have given a safe, forgettable performance that would have satisfied the requirement without drawing attention. But you didn't, Diane continued. You chose a difficult piece. You sought out additional instruction. You put in the hours. And when the moment came, you didn't play it safe. You made people feel something. Her voice took on an unexpected earnestness. That's what separates good analysts from great leaders, Ms. Chen. Not just doing what's required, but exceeding expectations because you're driven by something more than obligation. Lily sat in stunned silence. It was the most Diane had ever said to her at once, and certainly the most personal. The piano was a test, Lily said quietly. The realization finally confirmed. Everything in this business is a test, Diane replied. But yes, though the results were not what I anticipated. Did I pass? Lily asked, a slight smile forming. For the first time, Diane actually laughed, a brief, genuine sound that transformed her usually stern face. With distinction, Miss Chen. With distinction. She returned to her seat and pulled out another folder. Now about the leadership program. It requires a commitment of 10 additional hours per week, including Saturday seminars. Given your involvement with the music initiative, your schedule will be demanding. Are you prepared for that? Lily thought about the past month. The long days at the office, the late nights practicing, the pressure and doubt, and ultimately, the triumph. A month ago, she might have questioned her ability to handle more responsibility. Now she didn't hesitate. Yes, she said confidently. I am. Diane nodded, satisfied. Good. We'll discuss the details at tomorrow's department meeting. She checked her watch. That's all for now. It was a clear dismissal, but as Lily reached the door, Diane spoke again. One more thing, Ms. Chen. Frank is back from medical leave today. He asked me to tell you. Lily brightened at the news. That's wonderful. I missed him during the last week of practice. Yes, well. Diane straightened papers on her desk, reverting to her usual businesslike manner. He mentioned something about tea and moonlight. I didn't inquire further. Lily smiled, recognizing Diane's awkward attempt at personal connection. Thank you for letting me know. That evening, After a day filled with congratulations and conversations about both the leadership program and the music initiative, Lily stopped by the reception hall before leaving. As she'd hoped, Frank was at his usual post by the security desk. "There she is," he called out warmly as she approached. "The talk of the town." "Frank." Lily hurried over. "You're back. Are you feeling better?" "Good as new," he assured her, patting his chest. "Just a minor heart scare. Doctor says I need to watch the salt and take more walks." He winked. "I told him I get plenty of exercise chasing trespassers out of the building." "I missed you at the gala," Lily said. "I was hoping you'd be there." "Oh, I was watching the whole thing," Frank said with a grin. "Security office has cameras everywhere. Wouldn't have missed your big moment for anything." His expression softened. "You were magnificent, kid. Like you were born to play that piece." "I had good teachers," Lily replied, thinking of Joseph's gentle guidance and even Diane's technical advice. Speaking of which, Frank reached under his desk and pulled out a small gift bag. "Someone dropped this off for you earlier." Inside the bag, Lily found a beautiful leather-bound notebook with musical staff paper. The card attached read, "For your next performance." "Joseph Lynn, your community center friend?" Frank asked, seeing her smile. "Yes," Lily said, touched by the thoughtful gift. "He helped me when I couldn't practice here." "Well, he called earlier too," Frank added. "Asked me to tell you he's starting a small music program for kids at the center. Said he could use an assistant teacher on Saturday mornings. If you're interested." Lily thought about her already packed schedule, the leadership program, the foundation initiative, her regular analyst duties. By any reasonable standard, she should decline. "Tell him I'd love to," she said instead. As she turned to leave, she noticed the grand piano sitting silently in the corner of the reception hall. On impulse, she walked over and lifted the cover from the keys. "One more song before you go?" Frank called out hopefully. "Just a short one," Lily agreed, settling onto the bench. As her fingers found the opening notes of Claire de Lune once more, she reflected on how differently it felt to play it now. Not as a test to pass or a challenge to overcome, but simply as music to be shared. The lobby was mostly empty at this hour, but as she played, a few people paused on their way out, listening for a moment before continuing their journeys. Among them was Diane, briefcase in hand, stopped by the unexpected music. Their eyes met briefly across the lobby. Diane gave a small nod of acknowledgement, not quite a smile, but something equally meaningful between them, before continuing toward the exit. Lily finished the piece and closed the piano lid gently. Her life had changed in ways she never could have predicted when Diane first volunteered her to perform. What had begun as an attempt to shame her had instead revealed strengths she hadn't known she possessed and opened doors she hadn't known existed. "Same time tomorrow?" Frank asked as she gathered her things to leave. Lily smiled, thinking of all the tomorrows stretching before her, filled with music and challenges and growth. "Same time tomorrow," she agreed. As she stepped out into the evening air, Lily felt a sense of possibility that hadn't been there before. The journey that had started with fear and doubt had led her somewhere unexpected, to a place where she was not just surviving, but beginning to thrive, both as a professional and as a person. The test had become a gift, and she was just getting started.